Erik Messerschmidt is nominated at the Oscars for the cinematography of Mank. Now, how did you find out about the nomination?
I I watched the telecast, when they announced the nominations. I was overwhelmed.
And this is actually kind of the first time that you've been eligible for an Oscar. You've been a grip, a lighting technician, a gaffer for other films, and you've worked in television. You've been nominated for an Emmy. But in terms of kind of movies that are, theatrically released, this is your first one. So how did you approach the work that way?
Not really any differently, you know. I mean, I think you got to give everything 100%, and certainly tried to do that with this film. And as we had done on Mindhunter, and as I always try to do, it helps when you're working with a passionate and committed filmmaker like David Fincher. So it's easy to bring your A game with him because he gives it 180% all the time. So you got to keep up with him, you know.
And I wonder over the past 2 decades that you've been working in film and television, who were kind of the cinematographers that you really learned from?
I was really lucky. I worked for a number of DPs. For 20 years. I in particular, Claudia Miranda and Jeff Cronowith were significant mentors for me and still are. Faden Papa Michael was a major influence on me. It was I kind of came up through the ranks, you know. So I was fortunate to see a number of guys work and approach the work in different ways, and that really helped me shape my approach, I think, and my technique a bit. And so I'm really grateful for that experience.
You've said after Mank, you kind of never want to work with color again. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I mean that was a little bit tongue in cheek, but yeah, I mean, look, I adored the experience of shooting in black and white. It was fantastic, and it was a challenge that I've never really had before. You know, it was completely new process of working, completely different set of challenges, and it involved a lot of testing, you know, and a lot of prep, that just in terms of finding what it was we were trying to do, you know.
I've heard you kind of name drops noir lit or glamour or German expressionism as kinds of different kinds of black and white styles that you can go with. So which one did you end up landing on?
I guess it's a combination, you know. I mean, we were cherry picking different styles depending on what the scenes were, I think. And we were really trying to, I mean, at least for me, it was like, okay, I was worried. I didn't want the movie to be a parody of black and white. You know, I was concerned that could absolutely happen. And that if we leaned into it too heavily, that the audience would be distracted by the fact that they were watching a black and white film. So what we were trying to do was kind of find our own look, I think, a bit, while nodding at different styles of black and white cinema, you know. And the spectrum of black and white cinema is so broad, you know, like you say, from German expressionism through 30s glamour all the way to 40s noir and, you know, contemporary styles. It didn't feel appropriate for this movie anyway to pinpoint a specific look, or at least point in that exact direction, because the movie is thematically not related to any of those in particular, I think, you know. And we were looking at it a bit through a modern lens, you know. So the hope really was that people would see the film and be reminded of some of those bespoke moments of cinema history that the movie is referencing, but still appreciated as its own unique piece of work, you know.
You're looking at it through a modern lens and also modern lenses. Like, is there any temptation when you're making a film like this to kind of use the technology that they would have used back then?
Absolutely, yeah, and we discussed it. You know, the thing is that we were working at very high resolution, and we were interested in working with. We are interested in exploring it. It's exploring the process of degrading the image later, basically. You know, and there are elements of period lenses, or you know, vintage lenses, I guess we should say, that we quite liked, particularly the flares. But the resolving power of older lenses we didn't feel would meet the standards of what we were trying to achieve. So we were really looking for modern lenses that would give us the resolving power and the resolution that we wanted to work with. You know, to meet up with the 8K capture, and give us enough resolution for the visual effects work, and give us the sharpness that we were looking for, which we could then art direct down later as we screw the image up. So, you know, we looked at some older lenses essentially as reference. You know, those early Bell and Howells, and you know, Cook Pancros, you know, the old vintage glass, particularly for flares. And then we art directed everything in those certain directions based on the things we liked, and we excluded the stuff we didn't like.
Are you talking about flares like when you've got a light in the shot and then there's kind of like a ring around it, or?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That particular type of flare, you know, we call it a ring flare, is extremely difficult to get with most lenses. I mean, it is a artifact that happened in early simple lenses of the 40s. We've taken it a little step further, but it was something that I had seen in some films, you know, references I had pulled, and I had sent them to David. And I said, I really like these flares. I think we should explore these kinds of flares. And we had done some of that in Mindhunter, and we had done some digital flare work there, which we loved. So we were interested in exploring that a little bit further and taking it another step further with this movie. And I think we did. It was pretty fun, actually, to go in there and say, okay, make this one a little bit bigger, and make this one a little brighter, and this one should behave this way. And, you know, it's, with a huge amount of help from the visual effects department on the film.
You said that you used to be into really dark cinematography and how that's really in vogue these days. Certainly on TV with like Game of Thrones or Ozark, just trying to kind of get away with what they can and just kind of show as little as they can. But you said that you've kind of moved away from that. So I wonder if you can expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was romanced by that idea when I was younger, and I thought that was really important. And you know, if you could convince producers to allow you to not put any light on the actors' faces, that you were, you know, you were going to be successful, you know. And I don't really believe that. I think that there is certainly room, and there are often times where it's appropriate to go quite dark. In our photography, but it's not. It doesn't have to be a touchstone, and in many cases, it's absolutely the wrong idea. You know, so I think for me, that's not as exciting as it once was. That idea. You know, look, I love contrast as much as the next guy, and I love to push the envelopes for sure. But for me, it has to be story relevant, and it has to be story driven, and scene driven. So, you know, I find in many cases, front light is the right choice. You know, and in many cases, by the way, the photography doesn't have to take the front seat. You know, it's you know, I think you have to pick your moments wisely and support the story first.
What do you think those moments are in Mank that you're really proud of?
Well, I think the walk and talk that we did with Mank and Marion through the gardens of San Simeon was something that I'm proud of. We did it day for night, and there was a lot of testing and planning that went into that. And David and I really worked on the staging together and thought about the sun position and what we could do when and which shots needed to be done in which order. And David's amazing like that. He really is considerate of those specifics when he's laying a scene out, which not all directors are. So that that's a blessing. But I think in general, the thing I'm most proud of the film is that it is essentially the movie we set out to make, and that's extremely rare in our business. I think you have these aspirational dreams in the prep, and then you end up settling for what you get to make in the end, and it's often quite different. So for me, I absolutely feel like the images we intended to put on the screen are by and large represented in the final product. Albeit with those sort of, there's always things that happen on the day and moments that fill you with surprise or unintended consequences of the weather or what have you, and we adapt. But in general, I think that the movie we made is really what we set out to make, and that makes me happy.
I find Mank a bit unusual in that the stills that they put out are actually just screenshots of the film. It doesn't appear that you had a still photographer on set, or maybe you didn't.
We did. Yeah, we absolutely did, and he's fantastic and really gifted. His name is Miles Christ. But I think for us, at least with this particular movie, we spend a tremendous amount of time art directing each shot of the film and lighting each shot of the film, and the lighting is intended for that particular camera angle, and the art direction in the shot is intended for that particular angle, and the blocking is intended for that particular angle. So I think with no disrespect for unit still photography, 6 inches to the left and 4 inches underneath the lens is really not the shot that we intended to make. We are lighting that angle. We are art directing for that angle, and the actors are blocked for that angle. So that's the angle we want represented in the press. And so when it comes to unit photography, I think that the behind the scenes moments that someone like Miles is capturing, which the camera is not, are so much more valuable in that regard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and there are a few of those ones out there.
For sure.
Yeah. So it's Oscar season right now, but it's also Emmy season. Last year, you were unfortunately the only nomination for Mindhunter. This year, you did a few episodes of Raised by Wolves and also one of Fargo. So are you submitting either or both of those for consideration?
Yes. Yeah. Submit for sure. Yeah. I think we did some nice work there, and I'm proud of the work we did, particularly, well, both actually. Fargo, I was a guest. I came in for one episode, and Dana Gonzalez, who has shot several seasons of that show, is a very good friend of mine, and he was directing, so I had the opportunity to come and shoot for him, which I had done before on Legion. So I was thrilled to participate. I think the work the guys are doing over on that show is spectacular. And Raised by Wolves was a special experience for me, to work for Ridley Scott and do something completely outside of the box for what I've been normally known for or done in the past was pretty special, So yeah, it's I hope people enjoyed the work. It was certainly fun to make.
And finally, where are you now, and what are you shooting?
I'm in Savannah, Georgia. I'm shooting a film called Devotion for Sony. It's a Korean War film. So we're having a blast. We have it's a film about aviation. So we have some period airplanes, and we're doing some exciting stuff. I'm really excited for people to see it. It's pretty neat.
Okay, Eric. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to chat, and best of luck at the Oscars.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.